Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to our online teaching academy, Ekalaiva. CBSE Class 5 English. Today you are going to learn the next part of the lesson, Journey Through a Different India, Part 2, written by Jules Verne, from Raintree English Literature Reader. Journey Through a Different India, Part 2. Recap of Part 1. Mr. Phileas Fogg, a British gentleman in London, accepted a bet of £20,000 that he would travel around the world in 80 days. Mr. Phileas Fogg, with his valet Mr. Passepartout, reached Bombay 2 days before the planned time and took a train to Calcutta. Sir Francis Cromarty, a tall man of 50 who made India his home, accompanied Mr. Fogg as his guide. The train crossed Powell, then narrow passages of the mountains. The next day, it proceeded over the flat country of the Khandesh. Now, let us look into the line-by-line explanation of the second part of the lesson, Journey Through a Different India. Passepartout could not believe that he was actually crossing India in a railway train. The locomotive was guided by an English engineer and fed with English coal. Passepartout could not believe that he was actually crossing India in a railway train. Passepartout was not able to believe that he was crossing India in a train. The locomotive was guided by an English engineer and fed with English coal. Locomotive means a railway engine which pulls trains. The train was operated by an English engineer with coal brought from Britain. Here, there is a specific mention of English engineers and English coal to ensure the British rule in India. The British felt very proud that they had provided India with transport facilities. The engine threw out its smoke upon cotton, coffee, nutmeg, clove, and pepper plantations, and the steam curled around groups of palm trees. Nutmeg means a spice to add flavor to food. Plantations means large areas of land used for growing crops. The train took them through the large areas of land used for growing crops like cotton, coffee, nutmeg, a spice, clove, and pepper, with steam spreading around group of palm trees. Why different items of crops mentioned here? To show India as the wealthy land of cotton and spices. In the middle of the trees, they could see lovely bungalows and marvellous temples with the endless decoration of Indian architecture. Architecture means the style in which buildings are made. In the middle of the trees, there were bungalows in which the British people lived and temples which showed the unique Indian style. What is the purpose in mentioning the bungalows and temples? They show the people of two different kinds, the British and the Indians, as living together. They also represent ancient and modern India. Then they came upon vast regions with jungles full of snakes and tigers which ran away at the noise of the train. They crossed wide area of land and thick jungles where snakes and tigers ran away on hearing the noise of the train. Next, the railway ran through forests where elephants gazed at the train as it passed. Not far away rose Ellora and the famous Aurungabad. Aurungabad means old spelling of Aurungabad. Next, the railway ran through forests where elephants gazed at the train as it passed. Again, the train crossed the forests where the elephants stood watching the train as it passed. Not far away rose Ellora and the famous Aurungabad. They passed the Ellora caves and the city of Aurungabad. Why Ellora is mentioned here? Ellora caves are of much interest to tourists. At 12:30, the train stopped at Burrampur, where Passepartout bought some Indian slippers decorated with false pearls and put them on proudly. Burrampur, old spelling of Burhanpur, a city in Madhya Pradesh. At 12:30 in the midday, the train stopped at Burrampur, a city in Madhya Pradesh, where Passepartout bought Indian slippers decorated with false pearls and wore it proudly. The travellers made a hasty breakfast and continued on their journey. The passengers had their breakfast quickly and continued on their journey. Towards evening, the train entered the narrow passages of the Sutpour Mountains. The next day, the train stopped at 8 o'clock in the midst of an opening in a forest where there were several bungalows and workmen's cabins. Sutpour Mountains means old name of Satpura range. Towards evening, the train entered the narrow passages of the Sutpour Mountains. The train travelled through the Sutpour range that night. The next day, the train stopped at 8 o'clock in the midst of an opening in a forest where there were several bungalows and workmen's cabins. The next morning at 8 o'clock, it stopped at an opening in the forest where there were many bungalows and cabins for workmen. What do the bungalows and workmen's cabin tell us about? They tell us that bungalows are for bosses and the cabins are for the construction workers. The conductor, passing along the carriages, shouted, "Passengers will get out here." The conductor walked down the length of the train, asking the passengers to get down. Shout is the present tense, shouted is the past tense. Phileas Fogg looked at Sir Francis Cromarty for an explanation, but he could not tell why the train had stopped in the middle of this forest of dates and acacias. Acacias means thorny trees with yellow or white flowers. Sir Francis Cromarty was not able to reply when Phileas Fogg looked at him while the train had stopped in the middle of the forest of dates and thorny trees. Passepartout, also surprised, rushed out and returned soon, crying, "Sir, no more railway." "What do you mean?" asked Sir Francis. Passepartout got out and was surprised to know that the railway lines ended there. When he told about that to Sir Francis, he was not able to understand. Surprise is the present tense and surprised is the past tense. I mean to say that the train isn't going on. Sir Francis Cromarty at once stepped out. Phileas Fogg calmly followed him and they went together to the conductor. I mean to say that the train isn't going on. Passepartout replied that the train would not go further as the railway lines were not laid further. Sir Francis Cromarty at once stepped out. Phileas Fogg calmly followed him and they went together to the conductor. Phileas Fogg and Sir Francis Cromarty went together and met the conductor. Follow is the present tense, followed is the past tense. "Where are we?" asked Sir Francis. "At the village of Kholby." Sir Francis asked the conductor to find out where they were and came to know that they were at the village of Kholby. Kholby, at that time a village 50 miles away from Allahabad. "Do we stop here?" "Certainly. The railway isn't finished." "What? Not finished?" When Sir Francis asked the conductor whether they had to stop there, the conductor confirmed that they had to stop in Kholby as the railway lines were not completed. Finish is the present tense, finished is the past tense. "No, there are still 50 miles to be laid from here to Allahabad, where the line begins again." The conductor also informed that the railway lines were not put for the next 50 miles from Kholby to Allahabad, and from Allahabad only the railway lines begins again. "But the papers announced the opening of the railway throughout." "What can we do, sir? The papers were mistaken." "Yet you sell tickets from Bombay to Calcutta," said Sir Francis, getting angry. "But the papers announced the opening of the railway throughout." Sir Francis was very upset and questioned the conductor why then there was an announcement in the papers about the opening of the railway all over. "What can we do, sir? The papers were mistaken." The conductor replied that the papers had misguided them. "Yet you sell tickets from Bombay to Calcutta," said Sir Francis, getting angry. Sir Francis was very angry, for they had bought tickets from Bombay to Calcutta. Announce is the present tense, announced is the past tense. "We do," replied the conductor, "but the passengers know that they must make arrangements to travel from Kholby to Allahabad." The conductor accepted and replied that the passengers knew that they had to make their own arrangements to catch a connecting train to Allahabad. Sir Francis was furious. Passepartout did not dare to look at his master. Sir Francis, said Mr. Fogg quietly, if you agree, we will look for some other way to reach Allahabad. Sir Francis was furious. Passepartout did not dare to look at his master. Sir Francis was very angry. Passepartout was afraid to look at his master. Sir Francis, said Mr. Fogg quietly, if you agree, we will look for some other way to reach Allahabad. But Mr. Fogg was practical and said that they should not waste time but find an alternative way to reach Allahabad. Reach is the present tense, reached is the past tense. Mr. Fogg, this delay will cause great problems for your plans. No, Sir Francis, I knew that this could happen. What? You knew that the way? Mr. Fogg, this delay will cause great problems for your plans. Sir Francis felt that the undue delay would cause great problems in their plans. No, Sir Francis, I knew that this could happen. Mr. Fogg replied that he did not get upset, but in fact, he expected that there would arise some problem in his journey. What? You knew that the way? Sir Francis was very much surprised to hear this and asked whether he knew about this railway problem. Not at all, but I knew that some problem or other would sooner or later come my way. Nothing is lost. I am 2 days early, so I have 2 days to spare. Sooner or later means at some or other future time. Not at all, but I knew that some problem or other would sooner or later come my way. Mr. Fogg reacted immediately and said that he expected some problem would occur at some or other future time. Nothing is lost. I am 2 days early, so I have 2 days to spare. Through his calculations, he had discovered he was 2 days before the planned time. No is the present tense, knew is the past tense. A steamer leaves Calcutta for Hong Kong at noon on the 25th. Today is the 22nd and we shall reach Calcutta in time. Steamer means a ship or boat driven by the power of steam. Mr. Fogg knew that a ship which is operated by the power of steam would leave Calcutta for Hong Kong at noon on 25th and that day was 22nd. So, he was sure he would reach Calcutta in time to catch the ship to Hong Kong. Hope you have enjoyed the lesson, children. To receive our online lessons, please press the subscribe button and you will receive the latest updates. Thank you.